Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Wednesday night, February 3rd, 9:30 p.m. Calgary, Alberta time, and I'm happy to be here again. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. And it's great to be here. I've got some good information. We're kind of looking at the topic of understanding stress, signs, symptoms, causes, and effects. On Monday night we started checking this out, and I found this information on Help Guide, so we're going to continue on with that tonight. And I'm happy you can join me. And I don't have my switchboard. I have my switchboard up, but I don't have my chat room up tonight. And so, but I'll just be reading out some references and some different websites that I think are really helpful. So I'll be on for half an hour, and if you have some topic related, you're more than welcome to phone in. I'm not going to take too many phones. Nobody really phones in on my show, so I might not take any calls. I generally just read information out. And I'm going to just do some housekeeping. This is not a professional show, and I'm not a qualified professional counselor or legal representative. I don't have any professional certificates in this area, and the opinions expressed on this show when not reading from written material are my own, and I can't guarantee the correctness of the websites and material that I use because I don't write it, but it does look good. I do check out all the stuff that I'm looking at, make sure that it's something I think is worth sharing, and I just think it's fair just to let everybody know, that please listen at your own discretion. If it's a topic that we're talking about or discussing, that makes you uncomfortable or just might, cause you to trigger or something like that, I really would prefer that you just turn the show off, because change the channel, just go look at something else, because really it's important, and I want everybody to understand that it's more important for you to not listen to it if it's a topic that you're sensitive to. So because I do cover all issues related to child abuse, human rights abuses, and just abuse in general. So that's why I just decided to start doing that, because I thought it's just fair to let people know that it's better to turn it off than be upset by a topic that you find very uncomfortable. I'm very comfortable talking about abuse. I've lived with it my whole life, and I don't mind talking about it. It's very uncomfortable, and it's a subject that most people find hard to talk about unless you've dealt with it a lot and really thought about it a lot. And I've thought about it my whole life because growing up in an abusive home, our family was really destroyed by abusive behavior. So I've been dealing with it for a long, long time and walked out most of my healing, thank God. And so that's why I'm here. I just thought, I'm just a student at MRU, and I'm interested in child rights, human rights, and I thought, why not be one more voice to add my voice to all the others out there who are speaking up and saying, abuse must stop. Child abuse must stop, and we must find ways to prevent child abuse, prevent human rights abuses. And really the only way to do that is become educated on the issues surrounding it, and then work from there to work within our communities, within our homes, within our lives, to try to make this world a better place. And I'm so glad that you're with me, and I have a lot of supporters out there, and I all around the world, Australia and England and everywhere, and the United States, and everywhere. It's just so awesome. I thank you all very much for your support, and it means a lot to me. So we'll just go right on with this topic here. We were talking Monday night about stress, and it's from www.helpguide.org. Their material, they said, it's not for professional advice. They wrote a little thing here saying this material is for information and support, not a substitute for professional advice. So that's what I say. This is not a professional show. This is just one person who wants to reach out to people and just say, look, you're not alone. There's lots of great support out there, and just to keep looking for it, no matter what it takes to find that support that you need, so that you can have a good life. I think we all deserve a good life, and really, it's there. But we do have to work at it, and we have to really make the changes necessary to have it. And so that's why I just thought this is such a good article. Stress affects everyone, and not just adult survivors of child abuse or domestic violence abuse and stuff like that. Many people, actually everyone, experiences stress. Stress is normal, but a certain amount of stress, they were saying in this article, is okay But then when it becomes too much, then it's overload, and it can lead to all kinds of problems, physical problems with our bodies, and mental issues and all kinds of things. And with the way the world is today, and actually always has been, but especially it just seems like today people are very stressed because they don't have they don't have the support, they don't have the time to do things. Everything is pressure and deadlines for a lot of people, and the economy being so bad, and people out of jobs, people out of work, just so many things going on in people's lives. And I thought, why not cover stress, because it's an important topic. And it's important to me. I mean, I experience stress just like everybody else, and I thought, what's ways that a person can deal with stress and learn to kind of work with it, work around it, and find coping mechanisms. That was my big thing. I thought, there has to be some way of dealing with it in a positive way, and so that's what we're going to look at the rest of this week, tonight and Friday night as well. So they were saying, what is stress? Stress is a normal physical response to events that make you feel threatened or upset your balance in some way. The stress response is the body's way of protecting you, and when working properly, they said, it helps you stay focused, energetic, and alert. So I guess, stress is actually very necessary, a little bit of it anyway, but it says too much stress, then the whole body just kind of feels it, right? It says when you're stressed over a busy schedule, an argument with a friend, a traffic jam, your body reacts just as strongly as if you were facing a life or death situation. So it puts a lot of stress on the body, right? And it says long-term exposure to stress can lead to serious health problems. We were looking at that on Monday night. Chronic stress disrupts nearly every system in your body. It can raise blood pressure, they said, suppress the immune system, increase the risk of heart attack and stroke, contribute to infertility, and speed up the aging process. And they were saying long-term stress can even rewire the brain, leaving you more vulnerable to anxiety and depression. So, this is just really serious. It's such a serious issue, and we all experience stress, not just, like I said, not just survivors of child abuse and domestic violence. How much stress is too much? We were talking about that. It just differs between people, they said. Some people roll with the punches, and while others crumble at the slightest obstacle or frustration. That's what they wrote there. So it just depends on how, each of us are just different, and we handle things differently, and some can take a lot of stress and others can't. And so it says things that influence your stress tolerance level were your support network, your sense of control, your attitude and outlook, your ability to deal with your emotions, and your knowledge and preparation. So those things all influence, your stress, I guess, how much stress you can actually take. If you have a good support network, obviously that's going to make a big difference. If you seem to have, if you feel you have control in your life, it's a little easier to take stress, they said. And, your attitude and outlook is very important, because, if you face it and embrace it, you have a stronger sense of humor, you can accept change as part of life, right, and things, and believe in a higher power or purpose, right? This is ways to sort of look at stress. If you look at it try to embrace it in a positive way, I guess, right, it does help. Your ability to deal with your emotions, it says you're extremely vulnerable to stress if you don't know how to calm and soothe yourself. See, so there's ways to learn how to deal with stress, I think, that we could all use, and all benefit from, right? It says your knowledge and preparation. The more you know about a stressful situation, including how long it will last and what to expect, the easier it is to cope. So yeah, it's kind of like, looking at it and actually saying, well, maybe, it's a stressful time right now, but in a few months, if I do this and I do some coping skills and learn some coping mechanisms, it should get better, right? So I guess there's lots of ways to deal with it, and to make it, to make things better for ourselves, right? Causes of stress, we were looking at that. The top 10 stressful life events, I didn't get to read that on Monday night. The number 1 top 10 stressful life event is spouse's death. Number 2, divorce. Number 3, marriage separation. Number 4, jail term. Number 5, death of a close relative. Number 6, injury or illness. Number 7, marriage. Number 8, fired from job. Number 9, marriage reconciliation. And number 10, retirement. So yeah, if you had, if anyone has any of these top 10 stressful life events going on in their life, they're going to be dealing with some pretty heavy-duty stress. And a lot of people have more than one of those issues in their lives, and it just seems to be just too much, right? I mean, I've had that going on in my life, and where I've had, all kinds of things all at once, and it just seems like it's just too much, right? It's like a stress overload. And so, yeah, we'll just keep continuing on here. I wanted to look at signs and symptoms of stress overload. We didn't cover that Monday night, so we'll go over that. I'm just reading right from the page. You can actually go there, www.helpguide.org, and just look for the mental and stress and signs, and you can actually read right along with me if you like. Signs and symptoms of stress overload. It's important to learn how to recognize when your stress levels are out of control. The most dangerous thing about stress is how easily it can creep up on you. You get used to it. It starts to feel familiar, even normal. You don't notice how much it's affecting you, even as it takes a heavy toll. The signs and symptoms of stress overload can be almost anything. Stress affects the mind, body, and behavior in many ways, and everyone experiences stress differently. It says, how do you respond to stress? Psychologist Connie Lillis uses a driving analogy to describe the 3 most common ways people respond when they're overwhelmed by stress. And the first one is foot on the gas. An angry or agitated stress response. You're heated, keyed up, overly emotional, and unable to sit still. And number 2, foot on the brake. A withdrawn or depressed state response. You shut down, space out, and show very little energy or emotion. And the third one is foot on both. A tense and frozen stress response. You freeze under pressure and can't do anything. You look paralyzed, but under the surface you're extremely agitated. The following table lists some of the common warning signs and symptoms of stress. The more signs and symptoms you notice in yourself, the closer you may be to stress overload. So this is quite interesting. Stress warning signs and symptoms. Cognitive symptoms. Memory problems, inability to concentrate, poor judgment, seeing only the negative, anxious or racing thoughts, and constant worrying. And physical symptoms. Aches and pains. If you have diarrhea or constipation, nausea or dizziness, so you upset stomach, you got aches and pains and dizziness and stuff, you just don't feel well. Emotional symptoms, moodiness, irritability or short temper, agitation, inability to relax, feeling overwhelmed, sense of loneliness and isolation, depression or general unhappiness. So that's all the emotional feelings that you might be experiencing an overload, right? Behavioral symptoms, eating more or less, sleeping too much or too little, and isolating yourself from others. It says here, procrastinating or neglecting responsibilities, using alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs to relax, and nervous habits, like, for instance, nail biting or pacing. So those are some of the behavioral symptoms, right? You might pick up along the way if you find that your life is just too stressful, there's too much going on, and all of a sudden if you look at that list and you actually if any of that seems like, hey, I'm kind of going through that, I'm experiencing that, it could just be some warning signs. They're saying that it's just a stress overload, too much stress. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Keep in mind that the signs and symptoms of stress can also be caused by other psychological and medical problems. If you're experiencing any of the warning signs of stress, it's important to see a doctor for a full evaluation. Your doctor can help you determine whether or not your symptoms are stress-related. And it says dealing with stress and its symptoms. Now this is important. I think we really need to take a good look at this one. We got about 15 minutes left, and this is good. This is learn how to manage stress, strengthen your relationships, learn how to relax, invest in your emotional health, and they just give us some tips on all that. And then there's some related links and stuff. It's a great website, and I like the information on there. Dealing with stress and its symptoms. While unchecked stress is undeniably damaging, there are many things you can do to reduce its impact and cope with symptoms. Learn how to manage stress. You may feel like the stress in your life is out of your control, but you can always control the way you respond. Managing stress is all about taking charge of your thoughts, your emotions, your schedule, your environment, and the way you deal with problems. Stress management involves changing the stressful situation when you can, changing your reaction when you can't, and taking care of yourself and making time for rest and relaxation. So that's good. That's some good tips on stress management there. Changing the stressful situation when you can, and changing your reaction when you can't. So if you can't change the actual situation, then maybe you can change the reaction right there. I could just look at it differently, right? Taking care of yourself, right? I could just make sure I do extra good job of taking care of myself and making time for rest and relaxation. And I know that's really important because so many people are so busy, and we just don't have. It's not that we don't have the time, but we don't make the time. I've actually started to realize that myself. Like I say to myself, I'm gonna take this night off, and I'm just gonna relax, and I end up working or doing something anyway. It's really, and so I'm kind of like doing it to myself because I actually have, times during the week that I could actually be relaxing, and but I'm so involved in so many things, and because I love it, and it makes my heart feel glad. But in the meantime, then if I feel overloaded, it's kind of like, well, maybe I have to back off something, or maybe I don't have to work so hard tonight. I could sit down and just relax and read a good book, or watch a good movie, or go see a friend, or something like that, right? It says strengthen your relationships. A strong support network is your greatest protection against stress. I believe that totally. When you have trusted friends and family members you can count on, life's pressures don't seem as overwhelming. Isn't that the truth? So spend time, that's me throwing that in there. So spend time with the people you love, and don't let your responsibilities keep you from having a social life. If you don't have any close relationships, or your relationships are the source of your stress, make it a priority to build stronger and more satisfying connections. Tips for reaching out and building relationships. They go through and give us some tips here. They say, help someone else by volunteering. Have lunch or coffee with a coworker. Call or email an old friend. Go for a walk with a workout buddy. So, if you have a workout buddy, you could just go for a walk with them, right, and talk, and it's great. Schedule a weekly dinner date, and take a class or join a club. Yeah, those are some great ideas for tips for reaching out and building relationships, because it's so important. For years I just sort of sat around and suffered in silence, never really reached out to anybody. I had a good friend, and then that relationship was over, and we both just kind of, blew each other off, got angry, and said, forget it, the friendship's over, and it's sad. And then and then all of a sudden you find yourself like no friends, and the ones that you do have are just not that close. And it's so important to have people in your life, as much as it's work, because we have to do our part in the friendship, because it doesn't work one way only, it has to work two ways. And so it is work to maintain relationships, but then again, it's so worth it, because the support that you get from people, that when they're really good friends, you want to get some good friends. That's the whole idea, right? Get a good support network around you, because so many times in our families we don't have a good support network, and it's hard on people, especially if you're like an only child, let's say, and you grew up and you were an only child, and then you grew up, and then you don't have a whole lot of friends, and so you don't have siblings that you can kind of call upon when things get a bit out of hand, or you just need someone to talk to. It's good to find some people that you can talk to, and really just go out for coffee, or just hang out, and take a class or join a club. There's some great ideas. It says learn how to relax. This is one that I need to do. You can't completely eliminate stress from your life, but you can control how much it affects you. Relaxation techniques such as yoga, meditation, and deep breathing activate the body's relaxation response, a state of restfulness that is the opposite of the stress response. When practiced regularly, these activities lead to a reduction in your everyday stress levels and a boost in your feelings of joy and serenity. They also increase your ability to stay calm and collected under pressure. So that's a great idea. Just some nice relaxation techniques. That's what I need to learn, because I'm kind of always in a state of, I don't know, not relaxing. So it's just me. I'm just that way. And so yeah, it would probably be really good for me to do something like that. Maybe some breathing techniques and stretching or something like that, right? And yeah, I mean, I need to I'm learning a lot from these articles, right? I hope you are too. But I know myself, I get a lot out of it, because it's helpful for me too. That's why I wanted to share this with everybody, And it's because I'm learning too as I read this out. It's just a learning experience for me as well. Invest in your emotional health, it says. Most people ignore their emotional health until there's a problem. But just as it requires time and energy to build or maintain your physical health, so it is with your emotional well-being. The more you put into it, the stronger it will be. People with good emotional health have an ability to bounce back from stress and adversity. This ability is called resilience. They remain focused, flexible, and positive in bad times as well as good. The good news is that there are many steps you can take to build your resilience and your overall emotional health. That's great. I think that's awesome. Because just like we need to take care of our physical well-being and our physical health, we also need to take care of our emotional well-being. It doesn't do any good to be physically healthy and then be an emotional wreck, right? Or the other way around. We kind of need the balance, right? And so on this website, they have a little, it's really awesome website. You can go on there. They have more information about these, right, that you can click on, like improving emotional health. There's relaxation techniques for stress relief, so I'm going to go back and look at some of these. There's relationship help and stress management. So you just click on their little links, and they'll pull up the information just to kind of go further into the actual topics. And it's just good. I really like this website. It's great. There's also a quick stress relief link on there, and preventing burnout, signs, symptoms, causes, and coping strategies. And we'll probably take a look at that on Friday night. And there's some awesome links as well. There's understanding and dealing with stress, stress, unhealthy response to the pressures of life, effects of stress, physiology of the stress response. Then there's causes of stress, the different kinds of stress, and effects of stress, stress and disease, new perspectives, all kinds of things, childhood stress and teen stress. So we will be taking a more in-depth look at that. And because, stress, I just believe it's kind of, to relate to child abuse, adult survivor child abuse, of child abuse issues, it's hard enough, even if you didn't grow up in an abusive home and you had a great childhood and everything like that, you still experience stress, right? But for the survivors, the adult survivors of child abuse or child sexual abuse, or domestic violence victims, or survivors, of domestic abuse, I think stress really, it's even harder to manage. And that's why I wanted to cover this topic this week, because we know in our personal lives, how hard it is to heal from child abuse and child sexual abuse and domestic violence issues, and how much damage and how much how much suffering people go through, and then the normal stresses in life that most people would probably be able to bounce back from. Not everybody, but quite a few people would be able to just bounce back from it because they just have their emotional well-being is in such a better place. Survivors of child abuse and domestic violence really have a hard time with stress. I think the normal stuff in life that would normally not be such a problem to someone else can be manifested and just be a huge problem. I know for myself, I suffer with that. If I don't do well at work, for instance, if I find that I'm just not doing the best job that I think I could, I'm very hard on myself. I'm kind of not a perfectionist, but if I do something wrong, I really come down on myself. And so then all of a sudden I'll harbor it for a while and I won't think anything about it. But after a while, it starts to sort of create this feeling of the way I used to feel as a child growing up in the home that I did, and it's not a good feeling. And all of a sudden, then I'm upset, right? And it's like it could have been something so not important, but to me it just became a huge issue. And this has happened to me many times in life, especially with job issues, things like that. It's hard to deal with. And so I had something that happened to me actually last fall, where I was just not going to go back to work because I was so upset. And I wasn't mad at the boss or anything, but the lady that was my supervisor was stressing me out. She was causing me quite a lot of stress. And I just took it on personally because I just felt like, oh, I'm not doing a good job, or she's not happy with my work, and I made a mistake, and so now she's just going to fire me. It just went from one thing to the next, and the next day I couldn't even go to work. That's how stressed out I was, and I didn't phone in. I was just so upset. And the lady that there's like a life skill coach that where I work, and they phoned and they said, what happened? What's the problem? And I said, I just can't even go in because I'm so stressed out. So she talked me through it, and within about 15 minutes, she had me feeling okay about the situation. And so it's just so important to have someone to talk to. And I think that's why, if you're an adult survivor of child abuse or child sexual abuse or domestic abuse, it's so important to have somebody to talk to. And because these simple things that so other people might think, oh, how could you be so stressed about that, right? When, in our lives, it might trigger you, it might trigger something stressful that happened to you, might cause you to trigger, and then all of a sudden you're feeling down about yourself, or you kind of go back to the way you felt as a child. And I think it's so important to have someone to talk to. You have to reach out and make some really good relationships with people. I know that's what happened in my life. And I just, over the last few months have met so many people who I call my dear friends, who are supporting me and backing me up, and they're here for me. If I need them, I know I can call them anytime. I can get a hold of them and get that support, right? If I'm having a bad day, I don't have to say, oh, everything's great. I can say, look, I've had a bad day. I'm highly stressed or whatever, and I know they're going to be there for me. So that's why, I just keep saying it on every show. You have to make sure you reach out to those people that that you run into that are a good support system. And you don't want to spend too much time with people that are negative and bring you down, because there's good people out there, and there's people that really care. I know, because I ran into a whole bunch of them, probably about 200 of them. And so I just say, you have to just keep reaching out. And I'm going to go ahead and read out some of these websites that I've been on that I think are just awesome, and there's great stuff on them. There's the Survivor Manual, and that is www.survivormanual.com. It's run by the Angela Shelton Foundation. It's inspiring and empowering survivors to lead joyful lives. The Survivor Manual was born out of the huge following of the award-winning documentary Searching for Angela Shelton. After speaking to over 30,000 survivors of abuse, Angela Shelton wrote the book called Finding Angela Shelton, and that is now taught in schools around the country. After becoming an expert in trauma and recovery, she then created the Warrior Workbook to help survivors on the pathway towards healing. So this is on their website there. They have links and support. They have resources, lots and lots of resources, educational resources, justice resources. You can listen to the radio programs, watch videos. There's books and crisis support, survivor networks, coalitions, and advocacy centers. There's survivor and supporters blogs, just so many blogs on there. And this is the thing. These are people just like you and me, who have experienced horrific abuse, and they of all kinds, whether it's physical, verbal, emotional, spiritual, everything, sexual. They are people like you and me who have reached out and are finding help and finding hope, and that's why I just highly recommend these websites. We are adult survivors of child abuse and neglect. This is www.wearesurvivors.org, and there's resources, adult survivor news stories, survivors learning to feel safe, child abuse, runaway, and street sex trafficking information, child abuse and unemployment, child abuse and obesity. There's all kinds of information on this website. I just love it. And Child Abuse Monument, www.irvingstudios.com. That's a great website, and there's some awesome coping kind of mechanisms on there to show you how to cope as an adult survivor. And it's www.irvingstudios, or you can just type in your browser Child Abuse Monument, and it will come up. And there's the ASCA Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program at www.ascasupport.org. And they are an international self-help support group program designed specifically for adult survivors of neglect, physical, sexual, and or emotional abuse. Community-based self-help support program, Survivor to Thrive workbook. Just awesome. Just awesome. And there is Michelle Rosenthal's Heal My PTSD. This is a great website, www.healmyptsd.com. She's the founder, and she is awesome. She is 25 years PTSD free, and she knows all about it. Her website is great. There's links, causes, symptoms, therapy. There's talk therapy, all kinds of great stuff. There's a Bridge the Gap healing workshop on there, and it's free. Anybody can take it. And I just say, keep reaching out. And just keep getting that information and keep working on the road to healing and keep the hope alive, right? I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 5:30, one child abuse survivor to another, and then I'll be back on Friday. So take care, everyone, and I just hope that you have a great night, and I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.